Nobody really agrees on where dragons came from. But here's the strange part. Every culture on Earth swears they didn't copy anyone else. Civilizations separated by oceans, deserts, mountains, and thousands of years somehow came up with the same creature. Giant, supernatural, snake-like beings with unbelievable power. And honestly, it makes you wonder, did humans imagine dragons? Or were we trying to remember something ancient? Something we once saw? But before we get dramatic, let's rewind. Because the first dragons were not the fire-breathing, gold-hoarding beasts we see in movies today. Nope. The earliest dragons were basically snakes. Very big, very dangerous, very impossible snakes. The ancient civilizations of the Near East were some of the earliest humans to write things down. And guess what? Even their oldest stories already had dragon-like creatures. In the Mesopotamian creation epic, the Enuma Elish, the world literally begins with a battle between gods and a massive chaos serpent. If you were standing in ancient Babylon, looking at the famous Ishtar Gate, you'd see the Mushushu, a long, scaled creature with the body of a serpent and the stance of a predator. This wasn't some cute decoration. People truly believed something like this existed, lurking somewhere just beyond the edges of their world. They saw dragons not as fantasy, but as reality. Now, move over to Egypt. Those people weren't just scared of snakes, they built entire belief systems around them. The biggest, scariest one? Apep. Apep was not a maybe he exists kind of creature. Egyptians believed this enormous serpent attacked the sun god Ra every single night. Every sunrise meant Ra survived the battle. Every sunset meant Apep was waiting to strike again. Imagine living in a world where a simple sunset is a cosmic war. And Egypt didn't stop there. There was Nehebkau, a guardian serpent of the afterlife. And inside King Tut's tomb, they painted the Ouroboros, a serpent biting its own tail, a symbol that somehow survived thousands of years and still shows up in modern pop culture. Egyptians weren't casually including snakes in their art. They were obsessed. Snakes were powerful, eternal, divine. They were protectors and destroyers at the same time. In other words, the perfect blueprint for a dragon. Then Persia shows up with a twist. Their dragons weren't just physical creatures, they symbolized the darker parts of humanity. Their famous monster was Aji Dahaka, a serpent linked to greed, temptation, and corruption. It wasn't just a creature to fight, it was a warning. A reminder that sometimes the dragon you face isn't outside, it's inside. Persian storytellers turned dragons into symbols of human struggle long before modern psychology existed. Still serpents, still powerful, still feared, but now also deeply meaningful. Then the Greeks came along and said, you know what? These snakes are scary, but they could be scarier. So they upgraded them. Greek dragons had poisonous spit, fiery breath, wings, multiple heads, and enough rage to start a natural disaster. Heroes basically built their careers fighting these monsters. Heracles fought the multi-headed Hydra. Jason had to outsmart a sleepless dragon guarding the Golden Fleece. Cadmus killed a dragon and then had to serve Ares for 8 long years as punishment. Even Zeus, king of the gods, battled Typhon, a colossal serpent giant whose body stretched across the world. The Greeks didn't treat dragons as simple animals. They treated them as pure cosmic warnings. Rome adopted pretty much everything from Greece, including their dragons. But instead of turning them into huge myths, Romans used dragons for branding banners, symbols of military power, and badges of authority. A dragon, to them, wasn't a monster. It was a logo. But ironically, half their soldiers probably still believed these things lived somewhere in the wilderness. Then you travel east and suddenly dragons flip from terrifying monster to royal, sacred, divine beings. China actually has the oldest dragon art in the world. Some of their carvings go all the way back to around 6000 BC, way before cities, before dynasties. Honestly, even before people figured out proper writing. Imagine that. People were carving dragons before they were building real houses. That's how deep this creature sat in their imagination. And by the time the first Chinese dynasties finally showed up, dragons weren't just cool designs anymore. They stood for everything big and powerful. People saw them as symbols of strength, protection, life-giving reign, and natural force. They even connected dragons directly to royalty. The emperor didn't just rule China, he claimed he carried the spirit of the dragon itself. So when you look at their art, their architecture, their clothes, even their stories, you can feel that respect. In China, dragons weren't monsters. They were guardians, guides, and pretty much the universe's stamp of approval. Chinese emperors didn't just like dragons, they claimed dragons chose them. The dragon was basically their cosmic endorsement. One of the earliest versions was Yinglong, a winged dragon. Over time, artists removed the wings and replaced them with cloud patterns to show divinity. That style then traveled across Asia. Korea added wise, bearded dragon guardians. Japan blended Chinese dragons with Buddhist serpent deities. Even in Southeast Asia, dragon serpents symbolize storms, rivers, and cosmic balance. Dragons became spiritual, protective, wise, almost godlike. Then we reach the Philippines, and dragons suddenly become cosmic troublemakers again. Their legendary creature, Bakunawa, was blamed for eclipses. Whenever the moon disappeared, people believed a giant serpent was trying to swallow it. Some stories even say they'd bang drums and shout to scare Bakunawa away. Other Philippine myths described winged serpents, lake monsters, storm serpents. Basically, dragons tied to natural disasters. To them, dragons were nature's way of showing anger. In India, ancient Vedic stories describe one of the oldest dragon battles in the world: Indra versus Vritra. Vritra, a massive serpent, blocked all the waters of the earth. Rivers, lakes, rain, everything was trapped. Indra fought him to release the waters and restore life. This story is so old it's practically part of the foundation of Indo-European mythology. Now, here's where things get shocking. Even though the Americas were completely isolated from Eurasia for thousands of years, they also had dragon serpent beings. The Mayans worshipped Kukulkan, the feathered serpent. The Aztecs had Quetzalcoatl, another feathered serpent whose influence shaped their entire civilization. Then there was Ucoatl, the fire serpent linked to the sun. In the Andes, myths spoke of Amaruca, a double-headed serpent living in lakes and rivers. Even North American tribes had horned serpents linked to storms, lightning, and rain. And the Piasa bird painted on cliffs near the Mississippi looked exactly like a dragon with wings and claws. No contact, no shared stories, no trade routes. Yet the same creature appears. How? Eventually we land in medieval Europe, the place where the version of the dragon most people imagine today was truly born. By this point, Europe had already absorbed so many influences from everywhere. They took pieces of Greek serpent legends, mixed them with the dramatic symbolism from the Bible, added the military imagery the Romans loved, stirred in their own local myths, and then layered Christian beliefs on top of all that. All those ideas blended together and created the dragon we're most familiar with now. The classic giant creature with wings, sharp claws, scorched earth breath, and a massive treasure pile it refuses to share. It's basically the full fantasy package, and medieval Europe is where that version finally came to life. Medieval Christians pushed it even further. In the book of Revelation, the devil is described as a dragon, so artists and storytellers use dragons as symbols of ultimate evil. By the 1200s, the fully formed European dragon existed. Large wings, sharp claws, scales, horns, fire breath. A monster heroes were born to destroy, and once fantasy literature arrived, dragons exploded in popularity. Smaug from The Hobbit, the dragons in Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, Aragon, so many others. Dragons became iconic. This is where things get interesting. There isn't just one answer, there are several, and they all make sense. Humans are naturally scared of snakes. It's instinct. Even babies react to snake shapes faster than any other animal. Ancient people probably exaggerated that fear, imagining giant, impossible super snakes lurking in the wild. Then there's the idea that early humans stumbled upon dinosaur fossils. This one is actually really convincing. Ancient Chinese records literally describe these huge bones as dragon bones. And in Europe, massive skeletons were displayed on cathedral walls, believed to belong to dragons. People didn't know these fossils were millions of years old. They just saw enormous skulls, huge teeth, and massive bones and thought, what else could they be but dragons? Natural disasters played a role too. Eclipses, earthquakes, floods, storms, so many cultures use dragons or serpents to explain them. Imagine living thousands of years ago looking up at the sky and seeing the moon disappear during an eclipse. A giant serpent swallowing it? Suddenly, that explanation feels completely natural. Dragons also became symbols of human emotion. Persian myths describe them as greed, lust, corruption. The battle against a dragon wasn't always physical, it was psychological. These creatures became mirrors of the darkness inside us, a way to give shape to fear, temptation, and the parts of ourselves we struggle to control. And maybe the most fascinating reason is also the simplest. Every ancient human, no matter where they lived, faced the same basic threats. Snakes, storms, dangerous animals, the unknown. Every culture created a creature to embody that mix of fear and mystery, and that creature became the dragon. At the end of this long journey, after thousands of years and countless civilizations, one truth becomes clear. Dragons didn't come from one place. They came from everywhere. Dragons evolved alongside us. From giant desert snakes to cosmic serpents in the sky, from wise, protective dragons in Asia to terrifying monsters in Europe, they grew as we grew. Even today, they still fascinate us because they feel ancient, powerful, and somehow familiar, like something deep inside us has always known them. And that's the story of dragons, born from fear, imagination, and the mysteries of our world. So what do you think? Are dragons just stories? Or is there something more behind them? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more journeys into the unknown.